Hello, Matero enthusiasts. I wanted to talk a little bit about this really nice thermos that you can use to drink yerba mate with. It does say mate tereré on it, but you can use this for hot yerba mate or cold yerba mate. Either one, it's really great. I really enjoyed this. I purchased this a few months ago from Goyerbamate, which is can be found at goyerbamate.com. They have a website. They have tons of different yerba mate on there. They have some of their own branding type of yerba mate that they sell. They have a lot of organic, a lot of unsmoked also, but they carry everything: smoked, unsmoked, organic, non-organic, all different styles, different cuts of yerba mate. And they have a lot of accessories, and this is a really nice piece, this thermos here that you can use to drink yerba mate out of. It makes it really easy when you're traveling and things. Like I said, I bought this probably 5 months ago, and I've been using it just about every day. I use it especially going to work. Not that I don't love the traditional gourd, which I still use, of course, at times, but being right now that I'm going to work every day and traveling in the truck and everything, this really came in handy. I just want to give a few tips because I did have a little issue in the beginning, which was easily fixable. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about how I use it. Owner of Goyerbamate, he has his own video out, which is great. He describes this thermos and everything about it, how to use it, and he describes a really good upgrade that he did, and that upgrade is really fantastic. So anyway, just talking a little bit about it. You've got a lid here that you take off, and then you're going to see there is a little cap here that you take off, little ring, and then you've got your section here that you remove. This is the upgrade. It's a really nice spring filter, and it's all stainless steel. And then you've got like a flip up straw right here to drink from. And the way it works is you put your yerba mate in here. He fills his halfway, but I actually fill mine just below this little crevice here, this little notch, just below that. So it's below this hole. And if you're careful with it, I find that it works fine. I just have my own little technique to make sure it doesn't overfill or any yerba mate gets into the hole. So then you've got a straw, like a pickup straw, and then you've got your stainless steel vacuum insulated thermos there. And it even has a number at the bottom. I forget what that is, 304 or something, stainless steel stamp. But it's made really well. Been using it all the time. Really keeps your drinks hot or cold. I generally don't use really hot water. I mean, nothing like boiling. You don't want that for yerba mate anyway. So I'm basically using 160. Maybe I go to 170 every once in a while. 175 is the hottest I ever go with my yerba mate. But usually 165, 160, that's usually where I like to keep it at for my hot yerba mate. And then of course, you know, for tereré, cold yerba mate, you can fill this with cold water. You could put some ice cubes in it. But going through all of that for the past few months, I had a few tips, and I thought I'll cover that. One thing that I see that could happen is some people say it doesn't work right for them. And what I found is this is a spring-loaded filter, or a spring filter. And it has those little gaps in there for to filter out the leaves of the yerba mate. Now, what I found when I first purchased this was that when I was putting it together, like so, now this spring filter would go on the opposite side of this hole here. So when I would put it in like that, I was noticing it was pushing itself back up. It was kind of like I had to really push on it to get it in there in order to put this ring, locking ring on there. So So what I discovered was, and then actually when I tried to use it, it was really, really hard to draw. I wasn't getting anything. And I found that if I lifted this up a little bit, loosened up the ring cap, then it worked okay. And what was happening was this spring was being compressed down at the bottom, and you can see it closes up all the spaces if you press on it. And it just wasn't adjusted right. The spring was a little bit too low on the stem, so it was actually pushing on the bottom of that there, closing the spring up. So what I used to fix that is just go ahead and raise this up. And if you take like a knife or a screwdriver and you slowly work each ring up, this slowly inches up. It's really tight on this stainless steel stem straw here. So you gotta work it up. What I did was take a magic marker, it's still there, and I marked it, and I kept raising it up until I could see that it was going past that mark. That way I knew it was moving. And what I did was I adjusted this to the height of actually 4 pennies. What I did was take a penny and drop it down in there, exactly where this would rest on. And first I did 1 penny until the penny would, once I had the penny in there, and this was pushed all the way down, I could feel the penny would be locked in. And so I raised a little more until the penny would finally slide. It wasn't being held in by the spring. And then I did 2 pennies, 3 pennies, and then eventually I went up into 4 pennies worth. I can show you that in just a second. Maybe on the next little clip here, I'll show you how I just did that, how I tuned it up, that's what I call it. But I put a couple in there till I eventually had 4 pennies worth of space between the bottom of this and the bottom of that cup right there. So that way I knew this wasn't being compressed, and even if it had a little bit of Yerba Mate at the bottom, it wasn't going to compress on that. And 4 pennies is just a little gap, and that seems to really work out perfect for me. So that was one of the main issues I had with this. And once I got that adjusted, everything was perfect. The other thing that I found that I had an issue with was, I just didn't even think about it. This is when I was using it cold in the summertime, was I would put some ice cubes in here. And that's fine, but you can't put too many ice cubes in here because it's kind of obvious, but I just didn't think about it. But if you have quite a few ice cubes in here, and then you put this on, when you start to turn this to tighten it down, the straw is hitting against the ice cubes. And if there's too many ice cubes in there and it can't spin, it's going to push against the straw, and it actually just knocked the straw off. You can pull this straw out. It's in there really tight, it's pressed in, and every once in a while I check to make sure this straw is pressed in there real good. But what happened was it just pushed the straw off. And I kept trying to draw from it, and I was getting very little bit, and I didn't know what was going on. And I pulled it out, and it was disconnected. And I was thinking how that happened because the ice cubes were melted by then. But then I realized that's what had happened. So, like I said, just don't put too many ice cubes in there. Make sure it can all spin freely. 1 or 2 is good, but if you start putting a bunch in there, it can push against that straw when you go to tighten this down and mess you up. But other than that, this thing has just been fantastic. I use it all the time. You have to make sure, once you have everything together here, kind of hard to do with one hand, but like I said, this always goes to the opposite of your hole there, and that goes on, and your ring goes on. And if you watch Bill's video, he describes it all. But you put the ring on there, go back, this top locking ring would be on there nice and tight. And then this part, when you're not using it, you go and you tighten it all the way down. Nice and snug and tight, and you can put your cap on it. But when you're ready to drink, then you can do either way. You can pop this up first, and sometimes you'll hear the liquid come up a little bit, or you can just leave it down and then loosen this up. But this has to be nice and loose to draw some air out when you go to drink out of it. So when you're not using it, it's nice and tight. But when you go to drink out of it, just loosen this up and pop this up, and then you can drink out of it. It needs air to come down to the straw, in order for you to drink, because it creates a vacuum if you don't. It actually has a tiny little porthole here, but it's just not enough to get air into the system to not create a vacuum. So you really have to loosen this up in order to use it. And like I said, if you're traveling and stuff, I take a few drinks. If I'm in the truck, it's fine, staying loose. But if I'm gonna move around in between, I go ahead and I tighten it all back up, seal it up, put the cap on, go wherever I'm gotta go, and I'm like, yep, I'm ready for a nice, warm few sips. I go ahead, loosen it up, pop it up, take my drink. Pretty much everything else is exactly what Bill described. The only difference is I do put more yerba mate in here, and my trick is I just put pretty good bit of yerba mate in here till just below this hole, and then I create a little crevice here with a knife or something, just to create a little pocket here, which the screen spring screen will go down into. It just helps a little bit. I create a little pocket, then I pour some water in there, because like you say, the yerba has to drink first. So I pour a little bit of cold water in there. You'll see the water go down. Then I usually pour a little bit of more cold water in there. And then I don't wait too long before I put my straw and cap stuff back together there. Reason being is because, as you know, the yerba mate will drink that water and it'll really start to swell up. So before it begins to swell up, after I put the water in, I go ahead and I put my filter in, and I usually just give it a couple of wiggles. As it goes into that pocket that I created, I give it a couple of wiggles and I push down on it, and it's never a problem. It goes right down. Now it may swell up a little bit, but now it's going to be all up against the screen filter, and it really works great that way. And I go ahead and put it together, tighten that up. Can't really do it with one hand, but you get the gist of it. And once I have that together there like that, and I have my yerba mate in there, that's when I pour the water in here. And like I said, I'm doing like 160, 165 water normally, and I'll fill it up to usually just about this line here. I find if you go a little higher, you will push the water up into that, and if you have this straw up, it'll come right out the straw. So it works pretty good, just right about there, right about that line. Fill that up to that line, go ahead and put that back together. And also I found that if you're not ready to take your first drink yet, if you have your water down to here and you have this all closed and you put it together nice and tight, you can go ahead and it can wait a while, because the water won't get up into the mate so quickly. And then when you're ready to drink, you go ahead and loosen that up, pop that, go ahead, take your first sip, and then the water will finally get up to the yerba mate. Because if you're like me, I like it strong, but I don't want it to be sitting for, say, 20 minutes. Say I'm gonna go for a ride to work, and I don't want that yerba mate sitting up there yet. I wanna wait till I get to work and then go ahead and drink it. So what I'll do is I'll do, like I said, I fill it up to there, I put it together, I have this down, I don't open this up, so there's no air like pushing up on it. And once I get to work, then I'll lift this up, or I'll loosen it up and then lift that up, and then go ahead and take my first sip, and then it starts to get up there. I have to say the first sips, no matter what, are really strong, because you've got your concentrated yerba mate right there, and the first bits of water is coming up. So if you like it strong, that's how it's going to be in the very beginning for sure. Your first few sips of yerba mate, then it starts to calm down. And I usually, like I said, I fill this up pretty good with yerba mate, so I usually get a good 3 thermos fills out of this. I'm sure you could go more, but that's just for my own liking. And 3 is great for me. In the summertime, you can do so much with it. I mean, you can do that in the winter also, but I love it in the summer. You can also put some like mint leaves or something in here mixed with yerba mate. You can put some lemon in here with your water. You know, really be creative and have some really nice cold yerba mate drinks in the summer. But that's about it. I would say watch Bill's video because he really describes everything perfectly. I just thought I'd add on a few tips about how I do a little bit of a tune-up, like I said, with the pennies. I don't think I really need to show you that, but basically I am dropping some pennies right down there laying flat, and I like a stack of 4 pennies gap between this spring and the bottom of that cup. And that's how I've had it for the past few months. Once you set that spring, it never moves. It's always stayed right where I left that mark just to see if it ever moved, and it never did move. So it seems like once you tune it up and set it, everything's fine. And like I said, 4 pennies seems to be a perfect setting for me. And that should cover it. If you got any questions, feel free to write anything in the comment and I'll try to get back with you. Have a great day. Salud. Okay, gonna try to show you real quick the penny tune-up thing I do. So like here's 1 penny. And I drop it down in there. I put the spring, which will go right over top of the penny. Push it down all the way on the lid. And I shake it, so I know it's already above 1 penny. And I stack it with 2 pennies. Like that. Now I got 2 pennies. Put the straw filter right over top, spring filter. Now I shake it. You see it's still loose. So I know it's above 2 pennies. Okay, so next I go with 3 pennies. And stack that up with 3 pennies. Then I go ahead and put the spring straw over top of 3 pennies. Shake it. Okay, it's still loose. So I know it's above 3 pennies. Now my final adjustment is the 4th penny. And so really it's between 3 and 4 pennies, because on my 4th penny, I like it to be able to lock in and hold those pennies on the 4th penny. So I put it in. And now you can see I can shake it. It doesn't move. So I know it's, spring is just now holding it in place on the 4th penny. And that's it. You can see they're still there. So that's how I do my tune-up, so that the spring is not compressed. I just have it between 3 and 4 penny space. As long as it holds it on the 4th penny, that seems to work great.